They say in Chicago, you never look the devil in the eye. But what if the devil walks into your workplace wearing a $3,000 suit, holding the hand of the little girl you've been secretly feeding for months? Kate Jenkins was just a waitress at a run-down diner, drowning in debt and trying to survive. She thought she was just being kind to a lonely, mute child. She didn't realize that by giving that little girl a free cookie, she was painting a target on her own back. This isn't a fairy tale. This is what happens when kindness meets the mob. The neon sign of Jerry's all-night diner buzzed with a sound like an angry hornet, a noise Kate Jenkins had stopped hearing 3 years ago. At 5:30 a.m., the diner smelled of bleach, old grease, and the distinct metallic scent of the rain pounding against the pavement of South Wacker Drive. Kate adjusted her apron, hiding the coffee stain near the pocket. She was 24, but her eyes held the exhaustion of someone twice her age. Between her mother's medical bills at St. Jude's and the rent on her shoebox apartment in the bad part of town, sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Order up, Kate. Stop dreaming." Jerry, the owner, a man shaped suspiciously like a potato, slammed a plate of eggs onto the pass. "Coming, Jerry," Kate muttered, swiping the plate. She moved through the motions on autopilot until the bell above the door chimed at exactly 6 a.m. The atmosphere in the diner shifted. It wasn't a drastic change, just a subtle tightening. The regulars, truckers, and insomniacs kept their heads down. A large man in a cheap, ill-fitting suit walked in first. He was on his phone, chewing gum with his mouth open. Following him was a tiny figure. It was the girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She wore a pristine navy coat that cost more than Kate's car, white tights, and patent leather shoes. But her hair was messily brushed, and her eyes, a striking, piercing blue, were hollow. They sat in the back corner booth, the same spot they had taken every morning for the last 3 weeks. The man, whom Kate had mentally nicknamed the Grunt, didn't even look at the child. He sat down, kept his phone pressed to his ear, and snapped his fingers in Kate's direction without looking up. "Coffee, black, and whatever the kid wants. Make it fast." Kate grit her teeth, forcing a customer service smile that didn't reach her eyes. She walked over, pot in hand. "Good morning," she said, ignoring the man and looking directly at the little girl. "The usual, sweetie?" The girl didn't speak. She never spoke. She just stared at the laminate tabletop. Slowly she gave a tiny nod. "Pancakes with extra strawberries and a hot chocolate," Kate whispered, winking. "Coming right up." This was their ritual. The Grunt paid for plain pancakes. Kate told Jerry to charge for plain pancakes, but back in the kitchen, Kate paid the difference for the strawberries and the hot chocolate out of her own tips. It was $2 a day she didn't have, but looking at that girl was like looking at a ghost. She was too thin, too quiet, and entirely too sad for a 6-year-old. When Kate returned with the food, the Grunt was arguing in hushed, aggressive tones on his phone. "I don't care what Rocco said. The shipment is late. You tell him that." He ignored the child entirely. Kate placed the plate down gently. She had drawn a smiley face in the whipped cream. The little girl looked up. For a second, the hollow look vanished, replaced by a glimmer of childhood wonder. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a napkin. She slid it across the table to Kate, shielding it from the Grunt's view with her arm. Kate palmed the napkin and walked back to the counter before opening it. It was a drawing, done in crayon. It showed a stick figure with yellow hair, Kate, holding a plate, standing next to a small stick figure. A jagged red heart was drawn between them. Underneath, in shaky letters, it said, "Thank you." Kate's heart squeezed painfully in her chest. She looked back at the booth. The girl was eating voraciously, as if it was the only meal she'd get all day. The Grunt was still on the phone, oblivious to the fact that he was guarding a child who was desperate for connection. "Who are you?" Kate whispered to herself, watching them. "And why are you so lonely?" 2 weeks later, the routine broke. It was a Tuesday, and the diner was busier than usual. A construction crew had come in, loud and boisterous, filling the space with laughter and the smell of sawdust. The grunt and the girl were in their booth. The grunt looked hungover. His skin was sallow and he was sweating. He wasn't on his phone today. Instead, he was slumped against the window, eyes half closed. The little girl, Kate had learned her name was Bella from seeing it written on a backpack she carried once, was struggling. She was trying to cut her pancakes, but the knife was too big for her small hands. She slipped. The knife clattered onto the floor with a loud clang. The grunt jolted awake. He looked around wildly, hand instinctively going to the inside of his jacket. When he realized it was just the knife, his fear turned to instant, ugly rage. "You stupid brat," he hissed, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. He grabbed Bella's thin wrist, hard. "Can't you do anything right? You sit there and you shut up." Bella flinched, her eyes going wide with terror. She didn't cry out. She just froze, a reaction that screamed of conditioned fear. Kate was at the counter, filling sugar shakers. She saw the way his fingers dug into the little girl's skin, the white compression of his grip. Something inside Kate snapped. It was the same feeling she'd had when the debt collectors threatened her mother. A hot, blinding, protective instinct. She didn't think. She didn't consider that this man was likely armed or dangerous. She grabbed the pot of fresh, scalding coffee and marched across the diner. "Let go of her," Kate said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. The grunt looked up, sneering. "Mind your business, sweetheart. Go pour coffee." "I said," Kate stepped closer, invading his personal space, "let go of her arm. Now." The diner went quiet. The construction workers stopped laughing. Jerry poked his head out of the kitchen window, his face pale. The grunt laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You know who I work for? You know who this kid is? You're making a mistake." "I don't care if you work for the Pope," Kate said, her voice dropping an octave. "She is a child. You are hurting her. If you don't let go, in the next 3 seconds, I'm going to pour this entire pot of boiling coffee into your lap. And I promise you, I won't miss." She tilted the pot slightly. Brown liquid dripped from the spout, sizzling as it hit the table. The grunt looked at the steaming pot, then at Kate's eyes. He saw something there that unsettled him. He wasn't used to civilians standing up to him. He was used to fear. He released Bella's wrist. Bella immediately pulled her arm back, rubbing the red marks left behind. She looked at Kate with total awe. "Get out," Kate said. "You're crazy," the grunt spat, standing up. He towered over her, trying to regain dominance. "You have no idea what you just did." "I said get out," Kate repeated. "Leave the kid to finish her breakfast. You wait outside." The grunt looked around. The construction workers were now watching him closely, a few of them standing up. He realized he was outnumbered. He sneered, adjusted his jacket, and pointed a thick finger at Kate. "You're dead, girl. You hear me? You're done." He stormed out of the diner, the bell chiming violently behind him. He stood on the sidewalk, lighting a cigarette, pacing like a caged animal, watching them through the glass. Kate let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her hands were shaking so badly the coffee in the pot rippled. She set it down and looked at Bella. "Are you okay?" Kate asked softly, crouching down to be at eye level. Bella nodded. She reached out and touched Kate's hand with her cold fingers. Then, for the first time in 3 weeks, she opened her mouth. "Daddy," Bella whispered. Her voice was raspy from disuse. "Daddy will be mad." "At you?" Kate asked, horrified. Bella shook her head. "At him." She pointed to the window. "And at you." Kate forced a smile. "Don't you worry about me, kiddo. I can handle bullies." Kate was wrong. She couldn't handle what was coming. 10 minutes later, 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt in front of the diner, boxing in the grunt's car. The grunt dropped his cigarette, his face draining of color. The door of the lead SUV opened. The man who stepped out didn't look like a grunt. He didn't look like a generic thug. He looked like power personified. He was tall, over 6'3", wearing a charcoal Italian suit that fit him like a second skin. He had dark hair, slightly graying at the temples, and a scar running through his left eyebrow. He didn't yell. He didn't run. He walked with a terrifying, predatory calm towards the grunt. Kate watched through the window, frozen. The man spoke to the grunt for less than 5 seconds. The grunt fell to his knees, sobbing, pleading. 2 other men, dressed in black, stepped out of the second SUV, grabbed the grunt, and dragged him towards the third car. The man in the charcoal suit turned. He looked at the diner. He looked at Kate. Then he began to walk towards the door. 4 bodyguards flanked him, moving in a diamond formation. "Kate," Jerry whispered from the kitchen window, his voice trembling. "Hide. That's Dante Ricci. That's the head of the Chicago outfit." Kate couldn't move. She stood next to Bella's booth, her hand resting on the little girl's shoulder. The bell chimed. Dante Ricci walked in. The air in the room seemed to vanish. He didn't look at the customers. He didn't look at Jerry. His eyes, dark, intelligent, and utterly cold, locked onto Kate. He walked straight up to her, stopping only a foot away. The scent of expensive cologne and gun oil filled Kate's nose. He looked at Kate. Then he looked down at his daughter. He saw the red marks on Bella's wrist. His jaw tightened, a muscle feathering in his cheek. He looked back at Kate. "You," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, and terrifyingly calm. "You're the one who threatened my employee with a pot of coffee." Kate swallowed hard, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. But she looked at Bella, who was shrinking into the seat, and she found her voice. "He was hurting her," Kate said. Dante tilted his head slightly. "And you thought it was wise to intervene?" "I don't care who he is," Kate said, her voice shaking but defiant. "And I don't care who you are. Nobody hurts a child in my section." Silence stretched for an eternity. The bodyguards behind Dante shifted, hands near their waistbands, waiting for a signal. Dante stared at her. He studied her face, her uniform, the defiant set of her jaw. Then, slowly, the corner of his lip curled up. It wasn't a smile. It was something else. "Nobody has spoken to me like that in 10 years, Dante said softly. "The last man who did is currently under the foundation of the Navy Pier." Kate stopped breathing. "However," Dante continued, looking down at Bella. Bella looked back at him and, for the first time, gave a tiny wave. Dante's eyes softened imperceptibly. "My daughter seems to like you. She hasn't eaten a full meal in months. Yet here," he gestured to the empty plate, "she ate." He reached into his jacket pocket. Kate flinched. He pulled out a business card. It was black with gold embossing. No name, just a number. "My driver is outside. Your shift is over." "Excuse me?" Kate asked. "You're fired," Dante said simply. He looked at Jerry, who was cowering in the window. "She's fired, correct?" Yes, Mr. Ricci, she's gone," Jerry squeaked. Dante turned back to Kate. "You have a new job. You're coming with me." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Kate said, taking a step back. "I'm not getting in that car." Dante leaned in close. "Kate Jenkins, St. Jude's Hospital. Outstanding balance. $142,000 for your mother's chemotherapy. Rent is 3 months overdue. You have $48 in your checking account." "Oh." Kate went cold. "How do you—" "I know everything," Dante whispered. "Get in the car, Kate, and your mother's debt vanishes today. Walk away, and you'll never see Bella or a paycheck again." He turned and held his hand out to his daughter. "Andiamo, Bella." Bella slid out of the booth. She took her father's hand, but she looked back at Kate, her eyes pleading. Kate looked at the card. She looked at the terrified owner. She thought of her mother lying in the hospital bed, worrying about money she didn't have. She untied her apron and threw it on the counter. "I need my coat," Kate said. Dante Ricci didn't turn around, but he held the door open. "We'll buy you a new one." The ride in the back of the Cadillac Escalade was worse than the confrontation in the diner. At least in the diner, Kate could yell. Here the silence was a physical weight, pressing against her eardrums. The interior smelled of rich Corinthian leather and a complete absence of dust. It was hermetically sealed from the grimy Chicago morning. Outside the tinted windows, the rain-slicked streets of the city blurred past, the familiar sights of her struggling life disappearing rapidly. They blew past the exit for her shabby apartment complex in Bridgeport, and Kate felt a pang of genuine panic. She sat on one side of the spacious bench seat. Dante Ricci sat on the other. There was enough space between them for another person, but his presence filled the entire vehicle. He didn't look at her. He had pulled out a sleek tablet and was scrolling through information, his face a stoic mask. Bella sat between them, a small island of neutrality in a sea of tension. She had detached herself from her father's side and scooted closer to Kate until their thighs were touching. Kate instinctively covered Bella's small, cold hand with her own. Dante glanced down at the touching hands. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing. "Where are we going?" Kate finally asked. Her voice sounded thin and reedy in the oppressive quiet. Dante didn't look up from his tablet. "Home." "Your home," Kate corrected. "Bella's home," he amended, finally turning to look at her. His eyes were incredibly dark, like obsidian. There was no warmth in them, only a terrifying, calculating intelligence. "And now, yours." "I can't just move in with a stranger because you paid a bill," Kate whispered furiously, mindful of Bella. "That's kidnapping." Dante let out a short, derisive puff of air. "Kidnapping is messy. This is an acquisition. You were drowning, Kate Jenkins. I pulled you onto the boat. You don't complain about the accommodations on the lifeboat." He tapped the screen of his tablet and turned it toward her. It was a live video feed. Kate's breath caught. It was her mother's room at St. Jude's Hospital. Her mother, pale and frail against the pillows, was sleeping peacefully. A nurse Kate didn't recognize, an older woman who looked far more competent than the usual overworked staff, was adjusting an IV drip. "I had her moved to a private suite 10 minutes ago," Dante said calmly. "Dr. Aris Thorne, the best oncologist in the Midwest, is taking over her case as a personal favor to me. All past debts are cleared. All future treatments are covered in perpetuity." Kate stared at the screen, tears pricking her eyes. The relief was so intense it made her dizzy. She looked from the screen to the man who held her life in his hands. "Why?" she asked. "A cup of coffee isn't worth $300,000. Dante nodded toward Bella, who was busy tracing the patterns on Kate's jeans with a finger. "She hasn't spoken in 11 months, Dante said, his voice dropping so low it was barely audible over the hum of the tires. "She hasn't smiled in 6. She trusts no one. The men I hire to watch her terrify her. The nannies I hire quit because she won't interact with them." He leaned closer, his intense gaze pinning Kate to the seat. "Today she drew you a picture. Today she let you touch her. Today, for the first time since her mother died, she voluntarily sought comfort from someone other than me." The mention of the mother hung in the air. Bella stopped tracing the patterns on Kate's jeans. Her hand went still. "I don't buy people, Kate," Dante said softly. "I buy results. You are the only result I've seen in a year. You're not a waitress anymore. You are Bella's companion, her shadow. You keep her safe, you make her happy, and you might just get her to talk again. And if I say no, if I demand you let me out," Dante pulled the tablet back. The image of her sleeping mother vanished. Then the private room, Dr. Thorne, and the cleared debt vanished too, and we leave you on the side of the I-90 in the rain. Your choice. It wasn't a choice. It was absolute leverage. Kate looked down at Bella's small hand still resting under hers. She thought about the grunt squeezing that tiny wrist. "Fine," Kate whispered. "I'm in." The city skyline had long since receded behind them. They were entering the realm of old money, the North Shore suburbs, where houses were estates and driveways were quarter-mile-long asphalt ribbons hidden behind 12-foot limestone walls. The SUV slowed and turned off the main road toward unparalleled iron gates. A guard booth, manned by 2 men holding assault rifles across their chests, flanked the entrance. They nodded respectfully as the Escalade approached, and the gates swung open silently. They drove up a winding path lined with mature oak trees that blocked out the sky. The house that emerged at the end of the drive wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as a French chateau. It was massive, built of grey stone, with turrets and endless, towering windows that reflected the grey sky like unblinking eyes. It was beautiful, cold, and utterly intimidating. "Welcome to Highwood Manor," Dante said as the car stopped on the circular, cobbled driveway. Before the driver could open her door, Bella scrambled across Kate's lap and tugged on the handle. She jumped out and stood on the wet stones, looking back at Kate, waiting. Dante got out on his side. He stood tall, adjusting his cuffs, looking at the massive structure as if he owned every brick, which he did. Kate stepped out into the cold drizzle. The air here smelled different than the city. Cleaner, sharper, smelling of wet pine and money. Dante walked around the car. He didn't offer Kate his arm. He gestured toward the massive oak front doors. "Inside, we have rules to discuss." As Kate walked towards the steps, she noticed something. High up on the second floor, in one of the turret windows, a curtain moved slightly. Someone was watching them arrive. And somehow the feeling wasn't welcoming. It felt like she was being assessed as a threat. The interior of Highwood Manor was a testament to severe, masculine wealth. The foyer was a cavern of black marble floors and dark walnut paneling. A chandelier the size of a Volkswagen Beetle hung from a ceiling 3 stories up. It was quiet as a tomb. Bella immediately let go of Kate's hand and ran toward a sweeping staircase, disappearing up to the second floor without a backward glance. "Mrs. Weaver will see to Bella," Dante said, noting Kate's concern. "You come with me." He led her down a long corridor, lined with oil paintings of scowling men who looked vaguely like him. He opened a set of heavy double doors at the end of the hall, revealing a library that smelled of old paper, whiskey, and cigar smoke. It was obviously his sanctuary and his command center. "Sit," Dante commanded, pointing to a stiff leather chair in front of a massive, carved mahogany desk. Kate sat. She felt incredibly small and underdressed in her grease-stained jeans and thin hoodie. Dante walked behind the desk, but didn't sit. He stood by the window, looking out at the rain-soaked grounds. "Rule number 1, Dante began, his back to her. "Discretion is absolute. You saw nothing at the diner today. You know nothing of my business. You tell no one where you are. Your phone—" He turned and held out his hand. Kate hesitated. "My phone? It's how I talk to the hospital. You'll be issued a new secure phone. Your old life is paused. Hand it over." Reluctantly, she dug her cracked iPhone 8 out of her pocket and placed it in his palm. He dropped it into a drawer without looking at it. "Rule number 2. You are never to leave the estate grounds without me or my head of security, Elias Vance. Never. The perimeter walls are monitored 24/7. If you try to cross them, you will be stopped, and it will not be gentle." Kate felt a chill. "Am I a prisoner?" Dante leaned forward, placing both hands on the desk. The proximity was overwhelming. "You are a very expensive, very necessary asset that I am protecting. The world outside those walls is dangerous for Bella. By extension, it is now dangerous for you. People would love to use you to get to me." Kate swallowed. The reality of what she had stepped into was crashing down on her. The Mafia, the outfit. These weren't just stories in the Tribune. "Rule number 3, Dante continued, his voice softer now, but no less intense. "You are here for Bella. Only Bella. You are not here to fix me. You are not here to be my friend. You are not here to play house. Do your job, and we will have no problems. Cross the line, enter areas of this house or my life where you don't belong, and the consequences will be severe." "What kind of consequences?" Kate challenged, her stubborn streak flaring up again. Are you going to send me to sleep with the fishes? Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then a dry, genuine chuckle escaped his lips. It changed his face completely, making him look 5 years younger and strangely human. You watch too many movies, Kate Jenkins. Sleeping with the fishes. He shook his head, a smirk lingering. No, if you cross me, I won't kill you. I'll just put you back exactly where I found you. In debt, desperate, and watching your mother fade away in a crowded ward. To me, that is a fate far worse than death. The threat landed with devastating precision. He knew exactly where to hit her. Now, Dante's demeanor shifted back to business. Tell me about Bella. What did you see in the diner? It was an interrogation, Kate realized. He was testing her perception. I saw a lonely little girl, Kate said quietly. I saw a child who was terrified of the man supposed to be protecting her. I saw that she likes strawberries because they're bright, and she hates the crusts on her pancakes, and she traces things with her finger when she's anxious. Dante listened, his face unreadable. He walked around the desk and leaned against the front of it, crossing his arms. 11 months ago, he began, his voice devoid of emotion. My wife, Isabella's mother, was killed. It was a car bombing. It was meant for me. Kate gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Bella was in the back seat, Dante said, his eyes looking past Kate, staring into a violent past. She was miraculously unharmed, physically, but she saw everything. She was trapped in the wreckage with her mother for 20 minutes before my men could extract her. Horror flooded Kate. She pictured that tiny, delicate girl in that diner booth, carrying that weight. She hasn't spoken a word since that day, Dante said. He looked back at Kate, his eyes burning with a fierce, agonizing helplessness. I am the most powerful man in this city. I can crush unions. I can buy politicians. I can make grown men weep for mercy. But I cannot make my own daughter tell me she's okay. The vulnerability in his admission was shocking. It was a crack in the armor of the monster Jerry had described. Why the diner? Kate asked softly. Why send her there with that horrible man? Because this house is a mausoleum, Dante said bitterly. It's filled with memories of her mother. The doctor said she needed normalcy, routine, to see the world outside of guards and guns. Jerry's was supposed to be safe territory, neutral ground. The man I sent with her, Rocco. Dante's jaw tightened. He was a mistake I rectified today. He pushed himself off the desk and stood towering over her again. You are her normalcy now, Kate. You are her connection to the world that isn't soaked in blood. Don't fail her. Before Kate could respond, there was a sharp rap on the door. It opened to reveal a severe-looking woman in her late 50s, dressed in stark black, with hair pulled back so tightly it must have hurt. Mr. Ricci, the woman said, her voice crisp and disapproving. Bella is asking for her. She gestured toward Kate with a slight sneer. Kate, this is Mrs. Weaver, our housekeeper, Dante said. Mrs. Weaver, this is Kate. She will be staying in the East Wing, next to Bella's nursery. See to it that she has everything she needs. Mrs. Weaver looked at Kate like she was something the cat had dragged in and regurgitated on the Persian rug. Of course, sir. Follow me, Miss Jenkins. Dante sat down behind his desk, already dismissing her, turning his attention back to the papers that dictated the fate of the city's underworld. Kate stood up, her legs shaky. As she reached the door, Dante spoke one last time. Kate. She turned. He was looking at her, his expression intense. Welcome to the family. It sounded less like a greeting and more like a sentencing. Kate's room was bigger than her entire apartment. It was decorated in cream and soft blues, with a 4-poster bed that looked like a cloud. There was an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub and a walk-in closet filled with clothes in her size, jeans, soft sweaters, sensible shoes. Nothing flashy, just high-quality, normal clothes. It was a gilded cage. Mrs. Weaver had given her the tour with icy efficiency. The east wing was Bella's domain. The west wing was Mr. Ricci's and forbidden. The basement level, where the security team and staff quarters were, was also off-limits. Kate changed out of her diner uniform and into a soft grey cashmere sweater and jeans. She felt like an imposter in the expensive fabric. She found Bella in her room, a vast space filled with every toy imaginable, none of which looked played with. Bella was sitting on a window seat, staring out at the relentless rain. When Kate entered, Bella turned. Her face lit up. It was a small thing, just a brightening of the eyes, but after Dante's story, it felt like a massive victory. "Hey, sweetie," Kate said softly, sitting on the edge of the window seat. "Quite a house you got here. I think I need a map to find the bathroom." Bella didn't smile, but she leaned her head against Kate's shoulder. They sat like that for an hour, watching the rain drown the estate. Kate realized with a pang of sadness that this was what Bella needed most, just someone to be there, without demanding anything. Dinner was served in Bella's room by a silent maid. Dante did not join them. By 9 p.m., Bella was rubbing her eyes. The bedtime routine was difficult. Bella seemed terrified of changing into pajamas, terrified of the act of getting into bed. "It's okay," Kate soothed, helping her change into a silk nightgown. "I'm right here. My room is next door. I'll leave the door open." Bella frantically shook her head. She grabbed Kate's hand and pulled her towards the bed. She pointed at the space beside her. "You want me to stay?" Kate asked. Bella nodded vehemently. Kate hesitated. She didn't know the rules about this, but looking at Bella's wide, panicked eyes, she couldn't refuse. She kicked off her shoes and lay down on top of the ornate duvet next to the little girl. Bella immediately curled into her side, burying her face in Kate's sweater, breathing in the scent of diner coffee and cheap shampoo that still clung to Kate's hair. Within minutes, Bella's breathing evened out into sleep. Kate lay awake, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling shadows. The silence of the great house was heavy. It felt pregnant with secrets. Dante's story about the bombing replayed in her mind, the horror of it. No wonder the man was so protective, so intense. He was guarding a shattered child. Around 2 a.m., thirst woke Kate up. Her throat was parched. She carefully untangled herself from Bella, who whimpered slightly but didn't wake. Kate crept out of the room. The hallway was dim, lit only by low-wattage sconces. Mrs. Weaver had said there was a kitchenette at the end of the hall, used for Bella's snacks. Kate found the kitchenette and poured a glass of water from the tap. As she drank, she noticed a door slightly ajar across the narrow hallway. It wasn't a bedroom door. It looked more like a closet. Curiosity, that dangerous cat, prodded her. She shouldn't. Rule number 3, stay in her lane. But the house was asleep, and the door was just barely open. Kate pushed it open gently. It wasn't a closet. It was a small, windowless room. The air inside was stale. It looked like a storage room for things that didn't fit the manor's aesthetic. There were cardboard boxes stacked high, but on a small table in the corner sat a sophisticated piece of technology. It was a monitor, casting a pale green glow in the dark room. Kate stepped closer. The monitor was split into 4 screens. They were live camera feeds. Top left, Bella's room. Kate saw Bella sleeping, saw the indentation on the bed where she had just been lying. Top right, the hallway Kate had just walked down. Bottom left, the front gate. Bottom right, a view from high up, looking down at the bed in Kate's new room. Kate's blood ran cold. He was watching them, not just the guards. He was watching. The camera in her room felt like a violation so profound it made her nauseous, but it was what was taped to the wall next to the monitor that stopped her heart completely. It was a drawing on crumpled notebook paper, done in crayon. It was the same style as the one Bella had given her in the diner. This drawing was chaos. Red and black crayon scribbled violently. A crude drawing of a car engulfed in orange flames. A large stick figure lying next to it, covered in red. And standing next to the burning car was another stick figure, a tall man, dressed in black. Bella had drawn a speech bubble coming from the man's mouth. Inside the bubble, in jagged, angry letters, it said, "Silence." Kate stared at the drawing, her breath catching in her throat. Dante had told her Bella witnessed the bombing that killed her mother. He had said it was an attack by his enemies. But Bella's drawing told a different story. A child's interpretation of a trauma. The man in black wasn't helping. The man in black was demanding silence. Was it Dante in the drawing? A floorboard creaked in the hallway behind her. Kate spun around, dropping her glass of water. It shattered loudly on the stone floor. Standing in the doorway of the small room, illuminated by the eerie green light of the surveillance monitors, was Dante Ricci. He was wearing a silk dressing gown over pajama pants. His face was a mask of terrifying stone. His eyes moved from the shattered glass on the floor to the monitor showing Kate's empty bed, and finally, to the drawing taped on the wall. When he looked back at Kate, his eyes were dead. "I told you there were rules, Kate," he whispered, and the sound was more frightening than any shout. "I told you not to cross the line." He took a step into the small room, closing the door behind him, sealing them inside with the secrets. "Now," he said, his voice devoid of humanity, "we have a problem." The air in the small surveillance room was suffocating. Dante stood so close that Kate could feel the heat radiating from his chest, smell the faint, iron-tinged scent of aggression that clung to him. "Answer me," Dante said, his voice a low rumble. "What do you think that drawing means?" Kate pressed her back against the cold wall, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She looked from the monitors, where her empty bed was displayed in high definition, back to the man who owned her debt. "I think—" Kate's voice shook, but she forced the words out. "I think she saw the man who killed her mother, and in her drawing, he's telling her to be silent. And—" She took a jagged breath. "The man in the drawing is tall. He's dressed in black, just like you." Dante's eyes widened slightly. For a moment she thought he might strike her. The violence in him was a palpable thing, a coiled spring. But then the tension in his shoulders slumped. He let out a harsh, bitter laugh and stepped back, running a hand through his dark hair. "You think I killed Elena?" He looked at the drawing again, his expression shifting from anger to profound grief. "You think I would destroy the only thing in this world that made me human?" He reached out and tapped the drawing. Specifically, he tapped the hand of the stick figure in black. "Look closer, Kate. You're a waitress. You notice details. What is on the hand?" Kate squinted in the green light of the monitors. Bella's crayon work was crude, but there was a distinct detail she had missed before. On the right hand of the stick figure, there was a blob of purple. "A ring?" Kate whispered. "A purple ring?" "Amethyst," Dante corrected. "A signet ring. An antique. I don't wear jewelry, Kate. Not ever." He held up his bare hands. "My wife was killed by a rival faction, the Soldatos. But they couldn't have gotten close enough to plant that bomb without help. Someone inside my organization, someone close to me, let them in. They betrayed me. They killed my wife, and they terrified my daughter into silence." He turned back to the monitors, his face bathed in the ghostly glow. "That is why I watch, Kate. That is why there are cameras in the halls, in the kitchen, and yes, in your room. I am not a pervert. I am a man hunting a ghost. I am looking for the person who wears that ring. I am looking for the traitor who sleeps under my roof." Kate felt a wave of shame wash over her, followed immediately by a chill of terror. "You think the traitor is still here?" "I know he is," Dante said grimly. "The attempts on my life haven't stopped. They've just become more subtle. Poison in my drink last month. Brake lines cut the month before. Whoever it is, they are patient, and they are waiting for me to slip." He turned to her, his eyes intense. "Now do you understand? I brought you here because Bella chose you, but I am keeping you here because you are the only person in this house I know isn't the traitor. You're a stranger. You have no history with the outfit. You are the only variable I can trust." He took a step closer again, But this time the threat was gone, replaced by a desperate intensity. He reached out, his fingers grazing her chin, tilting her head up. The touch sent a jolt of electricity straight to Kate's core. "I need you to be my eyes, Kate." Bella sees things she can't say. She draws them. But she hides the drawings from me because she thinks I'm angry. She thinks I blame her. His voice broke. "She gave that drawing to you. She trusts you. Help me find the man with the amethyst ring, and I swear to you, I will give you the world." Kate looked into the eyes of the monster and saw a grieving husband. She realized then that she wasn't just fighting for a little girl's voice. She was fighting a war she didn't understand. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll help." Dante's thumb brushed her cheek, a lingering, rough caress. "Go back to bed. And Kate, lock your door." The next morning, the atmosphere in Highwood Manor had shifted. The rain had stopped, leaving a heavy grey fog that clung to the estate grounds. Kate moved through the day with heightened senses. Every member of the staff became a suspect. Was it the gardener, the chef, Mrs. Weaver? She found herself staring at everyone's hands, looking for the purple flash of an amethyst ring. Bella was in better spirits. Kate had convinced her to come down to the solarium, a glass-walled room filled with exotic plants. They were potting succulents. "You know," Kate said casually, patting soil around a small cactus, "my dad used to wear a big, funny ring. It had a tiger on it." Bella paused, her hands covered in dirt. She looked at Kate with those wide, intelligent eyes. "Did the bad man have a ring like that?" Kate asked gently. Bella went still. She looked around the room, checking the corners. Then she reached for a small stick she was using to dig. In the dirt of the potting bench, she drew a circle. Inside the circle, she drew a shape. It wasn't just a ring. It was a crest, a bird, a hawk, or an eagle. Kate's heart raced. She memorized the shape. "Kate, Bella." The voice made them both jump. It was Elias, the head of security. He was standing at the doorway of the solarium, smiling. He was a handsome man, blonde and athletic, always polite. "Mr. Ricci asked me to check in on you. Everything secure?" Elias asked, walking into the room. "We're fine," Kate said, wiping her hands on a rag. She felt a sudden, instinctive need to shield Bella. "Just gardening." Elias nodded. He walked closer, looking at the plants. "My grandmother loved gardening. She had these massive hydrangeas." He reached out to touch one of the leaves of the plant Bella was working on. As he did, his sleeve rode up. Kate stared. He wasn't wearing a ring. His hands were bare. But on his right wrist, just below the cuff of his tactical shirt, there was a tan line, a band of pale skin where a large, thick ring had been worn for years and recently removed. And on the inside of his forearm, there was a tattoo. A black hawk. The breath caught in Kate's throat. The drawing in the dirt wasn't a ring design. It was the tattoo Bella had seen on the man's arm when he raised his hand to silence her. The man in black. Elias always wore black tactical gear. Elias saw Kate looking at his arm. He saw the pale band on his finger. Then his eyes flicked to the dirt on the table, where Bella's crude drawing of the hawk was still visible. The smile didn't leave his face, but his eyes went dead. "Smart kid," Elias said softly. "Too smart." Kate grabbed Bella and shoved her behind her back. "Run, Bella, run to your dad." "I don't think so," Elias said. He reached for his radio. "Team B, the package is compromised. Initiate Protocol 0. Take them out. I'm going for the boss." "No," Kate screamed. She grabbed a heavy ceramic pot and hurled it at Elias. He dodged it easily, laughing. "You think you can stop me, Waitress? I've been planning this coup for 2 years. The Ricci bloodline ends today." He lunged for them. Kate didn't think. She tackled him. She was half his size and had 0 combat training. But she had the adrenaline of a woman protecting a child. She slammed into his midsection, knocking him off balance just enough. "Run, Bella!" she screamed again. "Go!" Bella hesitated for a split second, tears streaming down her face. And then she bolted. She ran out of the solarium, her small feet pounding against the marble floors of the hallway. Elias backhanded Kate across the face. The force of it sent her spinning into the potting bench. Pots shattered, soil spilling everywhere. She tasted blood. Elias straightened his jacket, looking at her with disgust. "Don't worry. I'll deal with the brat. Then I'll come back for you." He drew a silenced pistol from his holster and walked calmly out of the room, following the little girl. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded Kate's system. She spat blood onto the floor and scrambled to her feet. She had to get to Dante. She had to warn him. The house was in chaos. Alarms were blaring, a high-pitched, rhythmic wail. She could hear gunfire echoing from the west wing. The loyal guards were fighting the traitors. Kate ran. She ran barefoot through the corridors, slipping on the polished floors. She needed a weapon. She grabbed a heavy brass candlestick from a hallway table. It was heavy, satisfyingly solid. She turned the corner toward Dante's study and skidded to a halt. 2 men in black tactical gear, Elias's men, were guarding the double doors. They had their backs to her, focused on shooting into the study. Dante was pinned inside. Kate gripped the candlestick. She wasn't a killer. She was a waitress from the south side. But these men were trying to kill the man who saved her mother. She crept forward. The noise of the gunfire masked her approach. She raised the candlestick and swung it with every ounce of strength she possessed. Crack! The brass connected with the back of the first man's helmet. He crumpled like a rag doll. The second man spun around, surprised. Before he could raise his rifle, Kate swung again, hitting him in the knee. He howled and went down. She hit him again, harder, silencing him. She kicked the doors open. "Dante!" Dante was crouched behind his massive mahogany desk, reloading a silver handgun. He looked up, his face smeared with soot, his eyes wild. When he saw her standing there, holding a bloody candlestick, looking like a vengeful angel, his expression broke. "Kate, where is Bella?" "Elias!" Kate gasped, running to slide behind the desk with him. Bullets chipped the wood above their heads. "It's Elias. He's the traitor. He went after Bella." Dante's face turned into a mask of pure demonic rage. "Elias? He has a hawk tattoo," Kate panted. "Bella drew it. He went towards the nursery." Dante stood up. He didn't care about the cover fire anymore. He walked out from behind the desk, firing with lethal precision at the doorway where more men were appearing. 2 shots, 2 bodies. "Stay here," he commanded. "No," Kate said, grabbing his arm. "She trusts me." Dante looked at her. He nodded once. "Stay behind me." They moved through the house like ghosts. Dante was a force of nature, clearing the hallways with efficient brutality. Kate followed, clutching her candlestick, her heart in her throat. They reached the east wing. The door to the nursery was open. "Bella!" Dante roared. They burst into the room. The room was empty, but the window leading to the balcony was shattered. "The roof!" Dante hissed. They scrambled out onto the balcony and up the fire escape ladder to the flat roof of the manor. The wind was whipping violently up here, the fog swirling. Elias was standing near the edge of the roof, holding Bella by the back of her coat. Bella was kicking and screaming, but her voice was lost in the wind. Elias held his gun to her head. "Stop!" Dante yelled, freezing 10 feet away. He raised his gun, but Elias used Bella as a shield. "Drop it, Richie!" Elias shouted, his smile manic. "Drop it or the princess flies!" Dante slowly lowered his gun to the ground. He raised his hands. "Let her go, Elias. It's me you want. Let the girl go, and I'll give you the empire. I'll sign it all over." "I'm taking it anyway," Elias sneered. "And I'm taking your legacy with it. You killed my brother, Dante, 10 years ago. You don't even remember him, do you? This isn't business. It's personal." He cocked the hammer of the gun. Bella squeezed her eyes shut. Kate looked around. She was standing slightly behind Dante. Elias was focused entirely on Dante. She saw a loose roof tile near her foot. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. She needed a distraction. "Hey!" Kate screamed, stepping out from behind Dante. "Elias!" Elias's eyes flicked to her for a fraction of a second. "Shut up, bitch! You forgot one thing," Kate yelled, walking forward, hands empty. "And what's that?" "I'm not just a waitress," Kate said, her voice steady, channeling every ounce of grit she had learned on the streets of Chicago. "I'm the distraction." She reached into her pocket. Elias flinched, thinking she had a gun. He shifted his aim from Bella to Kate. That split second was all Dante needed. He didn't dive for his gun. He didn't shoot. He lunged. He covered the 10 feet in a blur of motion, tackling Elias. The gun went off. Bang! Kate felt a stinging heat graze her shoulder, but she didn't fall. Dante and Elias crashed to the roof, grappling near the edge. Bella fell to the hard surface, scrambling away. "Bella, come here!" Kate screamed. She ran forward, grabbing the child and pulling her away from the fighting men. Elias was younger and stronger, but Dante was fighting with the fury of a father. He punched Elias in the throat, shattering his windpipe. Elias gasped, choking. Dante grabbed him by the lapels of his tactical vest. "For Elena," Dante snarled. He threw Elias off the edge of the roof. The scream was short, cut off abruptly by a sickening thud 3 stories below. Silence reclaimed the rooftop. The only sound was the wind and the heavy breathing of the 3 survivors. Dante turned. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. He looked at Kate, clutching her bleeding shoulder. He looked at Bella, shivering in Kate's arms. He dropped to his knees and crawled towards them. "Bella!" he choked out. "Bella, amore mio!" Bella looked at her father. She looked at the blood on his face. She looked at Kate, who was grimacing in pain but smiling at her. Bella took a deep breath. She reached out and touched Dante's face. "Daddy," she said clearly. Her voice was small but strong. "You're safe." Dante Ricci, the king of Chicago, the man who made grown men tremble, collapsed forward, wrapping his arms around his daughter and the waitress who had saved them both, and wept. 6 months later, the sign above the door didn't say Jerry's all-night diner anymore. It said Kate's place. The interior had been renovated, clean booths, warm lighting, and fresh flowers on every table. Kate stood behind the counter, wiping down the gleaming surface. She wasn't wearing a uniform. She was wearing a silk blouse and a pencil skirt. The bell above the door chimed. Dante walked in. He wasn't wearing a suit today. He was wearing jeans and a leather jacket, looking less like a mob boss and more like a man at peace. Holding his hand was Bella. Bella wasn't silent anymore. She was chattering excitedly about her day at school, her new art class, and the puppy they were going to adopt. They sat in the corner booth, their booth. Kate walked over. She didn't need a notepad. "Pancakes? Extra strawberries?" she asked, smiling. "And coffee," Dante said. He reached out and took Kate's hand, lacing his fingers through hers. The amethyst ring was gone, replaced by a simple platinum band on his finger. "But only if you join us." Kate looked at the man who had kidnapped her, terrified her, and then given her everything she had ever dreamed of, including her mother, who was now cancer-free and baking pies in the kitchen. "I'm the owner," Kate teased, sliding into the booth next to him. "I can do whatever I want." Dante kissed her knuckles. "Yes, you can. You're the queen, after all." Bella giggled, drawing on her napkin. She turned it around to show them. It was a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall man, a woman with yellow hair, and a little girl. Underneath, it read, "Family." Kate leaned her head on Dante's shoulder. The rain outside was soft now, washing away the grime of the city, leaving everything new. And that is the story of how a single act of kindness in a diner changed everything. It just goes to show you never know who you're serving, or whose life you might save just by paying attention. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories like this, filled with romance, danger, and twists, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. What would you have done if you were Kate? Would you have gotten in the car? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.